your take on the divides between the Europe and the US? And do you feel like this show of unity against China is real, or is it fake in some respects?
The G7, as you imply, just like the EU, just like NATO, are divided over the issue of China. The NATO spokesman said that NATO is not preparing joint military plans to deal with China. And I quote, only some members of the alliance are doing that, which on one level was alarming enough that NATO should reveal that some members of the alliance are doing so, but also revealing of them that some of them don't want anything to do with that. We'll see what the G7 actually decides, but the EU is divided, NATO is divided, the G7 is divided. We are talking about countries whose economies are completely on the floor. And I've been in several European capitals in the last few weeks, and genuinely sorry to tell you that Europe is falling if it has not already fallen.
I want your opinion on this new word being used by European heads of state officials. They don't want to say decoupling from China. Now they're saying de-risking. What's your take on this use of the term de-risking?
I'm afraid changing decoupling to de-risking is, if anything, even more insulting to China. Either way you dice it, dealing with China is the least risky thing you could possibly do with your money and your business. China's economy is vaulting forward. It will have at least 4 times the rate of growth of the United States economy this year, and 5 times the rate of growth of many of the European economies. The Western economies are absolutely dependent on China. If China stopped exporting its products to us, there would be riots on every street in the so-called Western world, because all of the things that we need to live are coming from China. China holds all the cards, and that's what they're afraid of, you see. They want China on its knees, a China that's standing up and towering, increasingly towering over them, is exactly the China they don't want to see.
Speaking of cards, it feels like there are several countries in the Asia-Pacific region that are playing certain cards with the United States right now. There's been talk across the Western media of a trilateral military alliance, the United States, Japan, and South Korea, ostensibly to curb the nuclear threat, quote unquote, with the DPRK. What do you have to make about this development?
Trying to yoke South Korea and Japan into a war alliance against China will be a very, very tough ask. It's exceedingly worrying to people like me with a long memory that countries like Japan are being armed and encouraged to rediscover militarism again. And I'm sure that China has a very close eye on what's happening in Japan. I call upon them to reject this path. Japan was devastated and could have been destroyed once before in nuclear conflict. Please don't court it again, because that's what the United States will have you do.